Okay, I'd like to call the Comox Valley Regional District regular meeting of Tuesday, August 10th to order. And I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, caretakers of this land since time immemorial. And today we're going to read from the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Article 38. States, in consultation and cooperation with Indigenous peoples, shall take the appropriate measures, including legislative measures, to achieve the ends of this declaration. And we have in-camera recommendation. Hillian and Arbor, thank you. And following the regular meeting, we'll move in camera according to sections 91G, K, and 92B of Community Charter. And anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. We're moving on to adoption of minutes from July 26th. Grant and Arbor, moving both sets from July 26th and July 27th. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. And there's no delegations tonight. We move on to reports, and we have grant status report. McCullum and Grant, thank you. And I'll pass it over to staff.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors. And this is a regular update that we provide you with respect to grants. Staff are available to answer any of your questions if you have any.
Any questions? Director Arbor, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. It's always useful to see the grant status, including those that unfortunately we didn't get, but there's quite a few that we did get or completed, so that's really great. I was just wondering in the list, I'm pretty sure we got news about the sewage grant, and I didn't see it in the report. So I was just wondering if there was a reason for that.
Pardon me, you are referring to an application we made for funding for services to the south. We had received notice, but not in time for the update of this, and it will be on the next one.
Thank you. And not seeing any further questions. Anyone opposed to receipt of the report? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. And we're on to bylaws and resolutions for adoption. The first one we have is number 602, the Rural Comox Valley Zoning Bylaw. And for amendment number 3. Wells and Hamir, thank you. And it's a vote of the areas. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. And we're on to item 2, which is bylaw number 645, the Comox Valley Animal Control Bylaw. Hamir and Arbor, thank you. And this is a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. And we're on to item 3, that's bylaw number 646, the Fireworks Regulation Extended Service Bylaw.
Move.
Director Grieve, thank you. Can I get a second? Grant? And it's a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried. And we're on to item 4, which is bylaw number 658, Union Bay Fire Protection Service Establishment. Grant and Arbor, thank you. Any further discussion? And it's a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried. On to item 5, which is bylaw 659, the Union Bay Street Lighting Service. Grant and Wells. Again, a vote of full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. On to item 6, bylaw 660, the Union Bay Water Service Establishment bylaw.
Move adoption.
Grant and Grieve, thank you. Again, vote of full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried. We're on to item 7, bylaw 666, the Union Bay Water Service Capital Reserve.
Second.
Grant and Morin, thank you. And again, vote of full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, carried unanimously. And we're on to item 8, which is bylaw 667, Union Bay Water Service Future Expenditure Reserve. Grant and McCollum. And a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed? And that is carried. On to item 9, bylaw 669, Union Bay Fire Protection Service Capital Reserve. Grant and Morin. Vote of the full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried. Item 10 is bylaw 670, Union Bay Fire Protection Service Future Expenditure Reserve. Grant and McCollum. Vote of the full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried unanimously again. We're on to item 11, bylaw number 671, Union Bay Street Lighting Service. Hillian and Grant. Again, a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed? Oh, sorry, Director Arbor, go ahead.
Thanks. This is obviously a number of resolutions we're passing regarding Union Bay, and we've been passing them for quite some time, for the last 2 months. So I think it'd be an appropriate time to thank the CVRD corporate staff, in addition to the departments that have been working on that for the last year since the decision by Union Bay residents to join the regional district. So really great news. I don't think this board will see more flurries of resolutions like that from this day on. And again, thanks to the staff for what I think has been a very efficient and transparent process.
Thanks, Director Arbor. And yes, we welcome Union Bay residents into those new services. Okay, so we're on bylaw 671. It's been first and seconded. It's a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried. Thank you. So we're on to new business. And we have the Universal School Food Program correspondence. Barber and Wells, thank you. And Director Hamir.
Thank you, Chair. I think the directors will remember that this request came to our table a few weeks ago from the Comox Valley Food Policy Council, of which I'm a member representing the regional district. And the ask is for us to endorse a letter for a Canada-wide healthy school food program. Now, it might seem above and beyond our area of jurisdiction, but I just wanted to point out a few things. We all know that when COVID struck our region especially, a number of families in the community were hit quite hard, especially those with young children. And we know that there are families who are struggling to feed their children a healthy food, and that the school system is actually one of the areas where they are able to get at least a decent meal during those programs. When COVID hit, that stopped, and both the regional district in conjunction with the school board and Lush Valley had to scramble to supply many of those families with healthy food to supplement what they were no longer getting at school. So we know that there are definite holes in our food system here. So apart from the ask of endorsement of the letter and a letter to the Prime Minister, which is what generally all municipalities across Canada are being asked to provide, I don't think that's a difficult ask for us to consider. I asked staff I asked the board to consider a third option. We have conducted and are continuing to look at poverty alleviation as one of the key areas, especially for children. And healthy food is one of those areas that touches on poverty alleviation so closely. And so I'm asking the board to consider if we can ask staff to look into how we can participate a little bit more closely in at least supporting the school district in ensuring that those healthy food programs continue, what our role could be, if we could help facilitate funding for those programs. And I'm not assuming that this is our regional district dollars, but sometimes there are funds that are available to regional districts. We have, staff capacity as well, that we're able to really support the school food programs in 2020. So there's a number of resources that we as a regional district have that our school district does not. And I'd really like to highlight and see if there is a better partnership that we could have to support our school district in making this food available to those families. So that's just a bit of a background on why this is landing here and what we're asking for, and look forward to if there's any other questions.
Thank you, Director. Director Morin.
Great, thank you, Chair. I guess I'm tag teaming with my fellow food policy council member. I wanted to bring up a point that wasn't made around our commitment to reconciliation, and we do have a lot of food programs within the school system that have a lot of First Nations components. I worked in the schools for many years, and there's a lot of people, children being fed who are not even in First Nations programs, traditional foods. And that, I think we've spoken about this before around looking at food gathering sources and traditional foods and how we can support that. So I think this isn't so much of a stretch. I know that we've got a lot going on in the Valley in terms of gathering food and then having educational components in schools, preparing that food, and looking at our parks and other forests and et cetera for those sources, and really supporting food sovereignty and people having access to those foods. So I think it's quite shocking that we don't have a universal school food program actually. And I know that the reason that we have fed children in the past here is really because of so many people making it a priority and doing it with very few resources. So I'm hoping that expands our understanding of what this means, not just to the school district, but to the entire community. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Swift.
Thank you. I'm fully in support of a proposal for a universal food program for the schools. But where I'm getting stuck is in the cost shared portion of it. And I'm wondering if I don't feel like I have enough information to support this at this time. So I'm wondering if we have any idea of what kinds of costs we would be considering.
Director Hamir.
Thanks for that excellent question, Director Swift. And I in no way assume that the regional district would necessarily put up dollars. A lot of, I think, what's being asked for is other resources. And I'll give you an example. I don't know if everyone knows that at the exhibition grounds, there is a garden that the regional district manages, but that we subcontract or sublease to to the school district to grow food. And much of that food then goes into the school food community. The land is ours, but this is something that we're providing to the school district. And I'm looking for creative solutions like that. I mean, money is always awesome, always great, but I think we do have other resources that we could put on the table that could provide some of those creative solutions of how to feed all of these kids. So yeah, but good question, dollars wise, if there is funding available, how and what service that could sit under. These are all questions that I think I'm asking of staff to look into if we support the proposal.
Thank you. Director Arbor.
Thanks for that clarification. That was a good question too from Director Swift. I feel like I don't want to miss the bandwagon. So I come from the land of poutine. I think people know that. And I was raised eating a lot of it. But in terms of not missing the bandwagon, I'm just thinking whether the Food Policy Council would consider sending a letter to the Recreation Commission in terms of all the food services that we provide at our facilities. I wouldn't want to miss the boat and see the school district provide excellent food to kids, but then kids come to our own facilities and find only poor, unhealthy options. So just a note, I won't motion it. I'm just giving it as feedback for the Food Policy Council.
Director Hamir.
I think that's another really excellent idea. I know we've renovated the kitchen at the sports center, and it could potentially be made available to teach youth how to cook, how to get those food skills. So these are all the ideas that we're trying to put forward. Absolutely.
Great. Director Grant.
So I guess I'm a little bit like Director Swift, and I'm stuck on the cost sharing issue. And the intentions are probably good, but it does say cost share. And I'm wondering if maybe we don't have the cart a little bit before the horse. Like if we went to number 3 first, figured out exactly what that says so that we could change the word cost share to whatever that would be, that might be a better way, for my mind anyway, to do this. We're kind of saying we're going to do this and then we'll find out the details later, where we should have some idea what we're getting into to start with, would be my take. So I would say that we should, if we want to, pass recommendation 3, and then once we get that, we can talk about 1 and 2.
Director Hamir, do you want to respond?
Yeah, and sorry, it sort of eluded me on what cost sharing everyone was referring to. And of course, the letter that's provided speaks to a cost shared school food program. My assumption is, and I'm going to find out from Lush, that this is a cost shared in terms of federally funded, but also a portion paid for by families who can afford that food program. So it's subsidized by the federal government, but in terms of local government, there's not really an ask in this letter, because we know that local governments don't have this type of money to put forward. So the cost sharing refers to a universal across Canada program that's shared between the federal government and families who can afford it, but that for those families who can't, that the food be made available. But yeah, if that helps with some of the considerations.
Thanks for the clarification. Director Hillian.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I worked for quite a number of years in federal, provincial funded programs. And whenever we spoke about cost sharing, we were always talking about federal, provincial cost sharing. That was my assumption when I saw this. But it strikes me that since it's not defined and since there is some confusion about it, that it wouldn't take away from either of the requested actions to just eliminate the words cost shared. And when it comes to those requested actions, I'd be prepared to move that. I think that would provide some certainty for directors that this is not us advocating that the residential taxpayer fund this sort of a program.
Okay, I think our staff have something to contribute.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm just looking at the letter that was written by Lush, and if you look at the sentence that crosses the 2 pages of their letter, I'm reading the top of the 2nd page, and it says a cost-sharing model of support with the federal and provincial governments. So I think it is the intention of Lush that it is federal and provincial cost-shared. So maybe if the resolution specifically said that, that would give the directors assurance that this isn't cost-shared with the regional district.
Great, thanks for that suggestion. And Director Wells.
I was going to suggest an amendment to add that, just that term, to make sure it's articulated. Where it says cost shared healthy school food program between the provincial and federal government, and I think that would bring a measure of comfort and clarity to the motion.
Yep, we're still on receipt, but when that comes up, we can do that certainly. Director
I
Warren.
think I can make an amendment now, can't I? No? Oh, there's no motion. I'm way ahead of myself then. Sorry.
Director Morin.
Great, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify something. I know we've been experiencing some confusion because this letter actually came from the Food Policy Council. It's very confusing because, of course, Marita is the coordinator for that and also for Lush. And I know that it does have Lush on the bottom of the letter. And we have asked, some of us have asked for that to be clarified in future correspondence, because sometimes these requests come through and they appear as though they're from Lush, but it's actually from the Food Policy Council as a whole, which of course is made up of local government, school district, community members, business community, and many others. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified for everyone here as well as the public, that this is a request from the Food Policy Council. Thanks.
Great, thanks for that clarification, Director Morin. And I see Director Grieve has his hand up. So before we move from receipt, we'll hear from Director Grieve.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, just these are all laudable aspirations, but as a reality check, I would just caution that we are on the eve probably of an election writ, and experience has shown me that nothing moves after an election writ. So this may end probably end up in a round file somewhere. So just not to get everybody's hopes up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are on receipt. I don't see any further lights on. So anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing and seeing none, that is carried. And does someone want to move the requested action? Director Wells? Or
Sure. I feel like it's Director Urgent, but yeah, I'm more than happy to move that the Comox Valley Regional District endorse the Coalition for Healthy School Food proposal for a universal cost-shared healthy food program between the provincial and federal government.
seconded by Grant. Any further discussion? Director Hillian?
And just a suggestion, Chair, on the wording, I think if it said federal, provincial, or federally, provincially cost shared, that's a little less awkward in terms of the wording.
Okay, a little friendly amendment. All right, any further discussion? All right, it's about the full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried unanimously. We're on to requested action number 2. Okay, Director Grant is moving requested action 2 with the addition of federal and provincial in front of the word cost share.
And Madam Chair, might I suggest it also be written to Prime Minister and Premier Horgan as well,
Okay,
since it is between the two organizations.
thanks for that.
I'll make that amendment. Yeah.
So that's Wells and Grant. Any further discussion on that? Director Hillian.
Just to speak, Chair, to Director Grieve's position, it's quite possible that that this letter eventually arrives on the desk of Prime Minister Singh or Prime Minister O'Toole. But the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister until something changes, regardless of an election being called. And I totally appreciate the point that no significant action is going to occur. I don't think any of us are expecting immediate movement on this in any case, but given that it is apparently a cross-Canada movement, perhaps it would even become an election issue. Thanks.
Thanks, Director Hillian. Next, we have Director Arbor.
Or Prime Minister Paul. And I would like to say that, yeah, it might actually be a good idea to send a letter twice. One now before the election, and because it might become an election issue, and the other after the election. Cheers.
Thank you. So we are on the requested action number 2, and it's a vote of the full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried unanimously. We're on to requested action number 3. Grant and Hamir, thank you. Any further discussion? Director Wells.
My apologies, my light's on from before, so I'm just going to but I think it, wherever I say this, but that comment about it going to the province and as well as the federal government, I think makes good sense. The discussion around the election, I think, may even make sense to send this to each of the federal parties so that it can become that election issue that I think many people might want. And I don't think it would necessarily be that onerous, but that would be the only slight recommendation. I know it's on the previous thing, but I think it.
I second that amendment.
Yeah, sorry, we went past that one, but we can go to staff and see if that's.
Sure, if you want a motion at this time to copy that letter to the opposition leaders as well.
Gets done, that's all I care.
Okay, I think we are still on requested action 3. So maybe we can move that after that all the letters go to all the parties next. And Director Hillian, do you have a comment on this motion on the floor?
I do, Chair. Thank you. I just wondered if staff wanted to make any comment in relation to this, particularly with regards to how it may dovetail with the poverty reduction strategy work that's going on.
I think that relates to the next recommendation from Director Arbor, not to the motion on the table, which is just to copy the previous resolution.
No, we actually are on requested action 3.
Oh, you are, okay.
First and
Sorry,
second.
pardon me. Yeah, those are the types of things that staff will be reviewing in their cursory review and reporting back to you.
Fair enough, thanks.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion, which is that staff be directed to provide a cursory review of resources that would be required to investigate the connection between income and food insecurity and possible options for action. Okay, it's a vote of full board. Anyone opposed? That's carried unanimously. Now we can make another motion about the letters.
Yeah, thanks. And to all parties, I would say even include the bloc. Quebec has a long history of really progressive things around children advocacy, childcare, food policy. So I think it might be worth sending it to them as well.
Okay, so we're sending letters to all parties. Any further discussion? And it's both full board. Anyone opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we will move in camera.